The dim glow of chandeliers bathed the high-end restaurant in a golden hue. Soft jazz played in the background, blending seamlessly with the gentle clatter of silverware and the murmur of well-dressed patrons engaged in quiet conversation. The scent of aged wine and sizzling steaks filled the air, an unmistakable sign of exclusivity. Dante Carter stepped inside, his posture relaxed but confident. Dressed in a tailored blazer over a crisp white shirt, he looked every bit like the professional he was. Behind him, his younger brother Malcolm and two close friends followed, their excitement barely contained. This was supposed to be a celebration, a night of fine dining, laughter, and good company. But the moment they entered, a wave of silence rippled across the room. Conversations faltered. Forks hovered mid-air. Eyes lingered on them for just a second too long before quickly darting away. The tension was instant, suffocating. Dante noticed it, but he had been here before. Not this restaurant specifically, but in rooms where his presence was questioned without a single word being spoken. He exhaled slowly, reminding himself to ignore it. A hostess with pin-straight blonde hair and a forced smile approached. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes," Dante replied smoothly, giving his name. He had called days in advance to ensure a table. Her smile barely flickered, but something in her eyes shifted. Doubt. "Right this way," she said after a moment, leading them through the dining area. As they passed, Dante caught snippets of whispered conversations. A middle-aged couple at the nearest table barely concealed their glances. "Did you see? Maybe they're athletes or something." "No way. They wouldn't come here dressed like that." Dante clenched his jaw, but kept walking. The hostess stopped at a table near the back, right next to the restrooms. It was nowhere near the main dining space where white tablecloth-covered tables sat beneath crystal chandeliers. Instead, this was a corner where servers bustled past carrying trays, the air tinged with the sharp scent of cleaning chemicals. Dante's patience thinned. "Can we have a table in the main area? I made reservations." The hostess hesitated. Before she could answer, a tall, broad-shouldered waiter stepped in, his expression blank, but his tone dismissive. "This is where we have space for you." Dante exchanged a glance with Malcolm. He could already see the frustration in his brother's eyes, but he shook his head slightly. A silent "not now." They sat down, trying to push past the tension, but it only got worse. 15 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. No menus. No water. No waiter checking in. Dante watched as servers effortlessly glided to other tables, catering to white patrons who had arrived after them. Malcolm exhaled sharply. "This is bullshit." Dante raised a hand, signaling a passing waiter. The man barely paused. "I'll be with you shortly," he said flatly, disappearing before Dante could respond. Another 10 minutes. The final straw came when a new group entered, 3 white men in suits. The same hostess greeted them with a genuine smile, leading them to a prime table in the main dining area. Within 2 minutes, a waiter arrived with menus and wine suggestions. Dante stood up, his patience officially gone. He approached the front, where a middle-aged manager in a navy blue suit stood, arms crossed, observing the floor. "Excuse me," Dante said, keeping his voice measured. "We've been waiting for over 40 minutes, and no one has served us." The manager barely looked at him. "We're understaffed tonight." "That's interesting," Dante said, "because I just watched a table get full service within minutes." The manager finally met his gaze, his lips pressing into a thin line. And then the lie. "Sir, we've had complaints about your group causing a disturbance." Dante's brows furrowed. "What?" The manager's voice remained even. "A few guests have expressed discomfort with your presence. We have the right to refuse service." For a moment, Dante thought he had misheard. Malcolm bolted up from his seat, his fists clenched. "A disturbance?" Malcolm repeated. "We've been sitting quietly this whole time." "I need you to leave," the manager said, his tone now firm. Dante felt his pulse hammering. "This is discrimination. We're not leaving." The manager gave a sharp nod, and within seconds, 2 security guards appeared. It happened fast. One grabbed Dante's arm. "Sir, let's not make this worse," one of them said, his grip tightening. Malcolm tried to step in, but another guard pushed him back. Patrons watched but said nothing. Some averted their gaze. Others looked on with mild curiosity, as if they were witnessing a minor inconvenience rather than a blatant racism unfolding before them. As Dante was dragged toward the entrance, he yanked out his phone. He hit record. "Let the world see this," he muttered. The manager turned pale. "You can't record in here." Dante didn't stop. He captured the restaurant's name, the faces of the staff, the people who had been watching. The doors burst open as the guards threw him onto the pavement. Pain jolted through his shoulder, but he refused to let go of his phone. He lifted it, pointing the camera at the entrance as the manager coldly stared down at him. A gust of wind blew through the street. The city buzzed around him, cars honking, pedestrians passing by. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Dante sat on the pavement, breathing heavily. He looked at his phone. The video was still rolling. And he knew this wasn't over. Dante Carter sat on the edge of his bed, the glow of his phone screen illuminating his face in the dim room. The video from the restaurant played over and over, every humiliating second, replaying like a nightmare on loop. His jaw tightened. He wasn't some random troublemaker. He was a respected man, someone who had built a life through hard work and discipline. A dedicated youth mentor, a business owner, a man people looked up to. Born and raised in Atlanta, Dante had always believed in progress. He'd heard stories from older relatives about segregation, about how his grandparents had to use separate entrances in diners just for being black. But that was the past. Or so he thought. He had always known racism still existed, but he had never been slapped in the face with it like this. This was different. This was deliberate. This was public. And worst of all, no one had stepped in to stop it. The next morning, Dante walked into his barber shop, his pride and joy. Carter's Cuts wasn't just a business, it was a community hub. People came here to talk, to laugh, to feel safe. His barber shop had never turned anyone away. His employees, Trey, Marcus, and Big Ron, were already busy cutting hair. The smell of aftershave and fresh coffee filled the air as men chatted about everything from the latest NBA game to the city politics. But the moment Dante stepped in, all eyes turned to him. Trey, a lanky 26-year-old with dreads, was the first to speak. "Bruh, I saw the video." Marcus, who had been cutting an old man's hair, shook his head. "Messed up, man. Real messed up." Big Ron, a stocky man in his 40s, folded his arms. "What you gonna do about it?" Dante sighed, running a hand over his face. "I already did something. Filed a complaint this morning." Silence. Then laughter. Marcus scoffed. "A complaint? To who?" Dante frowned. "To the restaurant's corporate office. They need to know what happened." Big Ron let out a heavy breath. "Dante, man, I respect you. You know that. But you think they care? They own the damn place. That manager was probably just doing what they already believe." Dante refused to believe that. They have a reputation to protect. No company wants bad PR. Ron shook his head. "All right. Let's say they respond. Then what? A weak-ass apology? Maybe a free meal? That don't fix nothing." Dante crossed his arms. "So what? I just let it go?" Ron leaned forward. "I'm saying don't waste your breath on a system built to ignore you." Later that afternoon, Dante checked his email. No response from the corporate office. No voicemail, no acknowledgement. Nothing. Frustrated, he picked up his phone and called again. This time, after nearly 30 minutes on hold, he was transferred to a woman with an indifferent tone. "We appreciate your concern, sir, but after reviewing the incident, we found no evidence of wrongdoing from our staff. Dante's grip tightened around his phone. No evidence? It's on video. The woman sighed. Sir, private businesses have the right to refuse service. If you feel strongly, you're welcome to pursue legal action. Click. The line went dead. Dante slowly placed the phone down, his mind racing. They were brushing it off, as if his experience meant nothing. That night, Dante sat at the dinner table with his younger brother Malcolm, his mother Sharon Carter, and his childhood friend Jasmine Green. His mother sighed heavily. Baby, I know you're upset, but what do you expect to happen? This world ain't fair. Malcolm, always the hothead, slammed his fork down. So we just let them get away with it? Sharon looked at her youngest son with tired eyes. You think this is the first time this has happened? Ain't the first, won't be the last. Dante stayed silent, staring at his plate. So? Jasmine, a law student, chimed in. Dante, I get it. I do. But this fight, it'll drain you. Dante looked up. You're telling me to let it go? Jasmine hesitated before nodding. I'm telling you to be smart about it. Dante exhaled sharply. You know what's crazy? If this had happened to someone else, I'd probably be saying the same thing. Move on, pick your battles. He looked around the table. But I can't. Not this time. Silence. Then his mother spoke softly. Then be ready, son, because this fight, it won't be easy. Dante sat in his dimly lit living room, the glow from his laptop screen reflecting off his tense face. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. The video had been sitting in his phone for days. Every time he watched it, his blood boiled. He had tried the proper channels. He had filed complaints, waited for a response, played by the rules. And what did he get? Silence, dismissal, gaslighting. He exhaled sharply, then started typing. Twitter post at Dante Carter ATL. This happened to me. Thrown out of a restaurant just for being black. No provocation, no reason. Just pure racism. I tried to handle it the right way. They ignored me. Now I'm letting the world see the truth. Attached was the video. He hesitated for only a second before hitting post. At first there was nothing. Dante refreshed his feed over and over. No retweets, no comments. Just a few likes from friends and family. Hours passed. He kept checking, hoping for a flood of outrage, for people to rally behind him. Nothing. By morning, the post had barely 100 likes and 15 comments. A sinking feeling settled in his chest. Maybe his mom was right. Maybe this fight wasn't worth it. But then, a notification. At Real Justice 4, all retweeted your post. They had over 200,000 followers. Then another, and another. Suddenly, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. By the afternoon, the video had over 10,000 views. People were sharing it, commenting. The fire was spreading. Then came the restaurant's response. Official statement from Oakwood Grill. We take all allegations seriously, but after reviewing the situation, we have found no evidence of racial discrimination. The individual in question was asked to leave due to aggressive behavior that made staff and customers uncomfortable. We stand by our employees. Dante stared at the screen in disbelief. Aggressive behavior? He had done nothing but walk in and ask for a table. Within minutes, comments flooded in. Some were on his side. This is disgusting. The video clearly shows they were in the wrong. Stay strong, Dante. We've got your back. Boycotting this restaurant. Racists should not be in business. But then the backlash started. Maybe there's another side to the story. Why does he start recording after he gets confronted? What happened before that? I've been to Oakwood Grill for years. They don't discriminate. Maybe you were the problem. Race card being played again. Shocker. Dante felt his stomach turn. They were twisting the narrative, denying what was right in front of their eyes. And then the threats started. Anonymous DM. Delete the video. You're making a big mistake. Unknown number. Be careful, bro. You don't want to start something you can't finish. Blocked account. If you don't take that video down, you're going to regret it. Dante clenched his fists, heart pounding. This wasn't just online hate. This was intimidation. And it was only getting worse. Dante sat at the edge of his bed, phone in hand, scrolling through the endless flood of comments. His post had blown up, but not in the way he had expected. The internet was split. Some were rallying behind him, others tearing him apart. His head ached from the stress. He hadn't slept all night. The threats kept coming. Fake accounts, unknown numbers, messages telling him to shut up. He considered deleting the post, just letting it go. Maybe his family was right. Maybe this wasn't worth the fight. And then a notification popped up. "At the real Malik Jones has retweeted your post." Dante's breath caught in his throat. Malik Jones, a nationally known activist, millions of followers. When he spoke, people listened. Dante tapped on the notification. "At the real Malik Jones to Emago." This is what racism looks like in 2025. A hard-working black man thrown out of a restaurant for simply existing. We're not letting this slide. Let's make some noise. #boycott the restaurant. His tweet was already exploding, thousands of likes, retweets, and replies pouring in by the second. And just like that, the tide shifted. The hashtag #boycott the restaurant trended within an hour. People flooded Oakwood Grill's social media pages demanding answers. Their latest Instagram post, just a picture of a steak dinner, was getting bombarded with furious comments. "Delete your business. You don't deserve to exist. I used to eat here. Never again." "Racists. Just admit it." More and more high-profile figures were retweeting the video. Celebrities, politicians, even a few big-name news anchors. Dante's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Then the news channels picked up the story. He was sitting on his couch when he saw it, his own face on TV. Breaking news. Viral video sparks. Outrage restaurant faces racism allegations. The anchor's voice filled his apartment. A video posted by Atlanta resident Dante Carter has gained national attention after he was forcibly removed from Oakwood Grill, a high-end restaurant in the city. The video shows Carter being denied service and escorted out by security, raising concerns over racial discrimination. Many are calling for a boycott of the restaurant, while others question the full context of the incident. Dante's heart pounded as they played the video. Then, a reporter outside Oakwood Grill. Microphone in hand, she stood in front of the restaurant's tall glass doors, speaking to the camera. "We've reached out to the restaurant's management for a response, but so far they have refused to comment. Meanwhile, protests are being planned outside the restaurant later this week." Dante sat there, stunned. This was bigger than he ever imagined. At the restaurant, chaos was brewing. The owners were panicking. Staff members whispered among themselves, watching the growing backlash unfold online. War, the manager, the same man who had thrown Dante out, stood in the office scrolling through social media with shaking hands. And the restaurant's inbox was flooded with hate messages. Their reservation system? Empty. Cancellations were pouring in. People weren't just mad, they were done. And worst of all, the media wasn't letting up. Reporters kept showing up, cameras rolling, demanding a statement. But the owner refused to speak. They were hoping, praying, that if they stayed quiet, the controversy would blow over. They were wrong. Meanwhile, for the first time in days, Dante felt hope. This wasn't just an online argument anymore. This was real. People were listening. And maybe, just maybe, justice was coming. The truth was out, and it came from the most unexpected place. Late at night, Dante was scrolling through his phone when a new post appeared on his feed. At Expose Racism, 1H ago, Leaked audio from an Oakwood Grill employee. "Yeah, the manager told us to keep the place classy. Code word for keeping too many black folks out." Attached was a recorded voice memo. Dante's hands trembled as he pressed play. "Man, I told you I knew this was coming. The manager's been pulling this for years. He always says he wants to keep the place classy. But we all know what that means. You think it's a coincidence that only certain people get told we're fully booked, while others walk right in? It's not just Dante. This has been happening forever." The voice belonged to someone working inside the restaurant. An employee had exposed them. The internet exploded. Breaking news. Leaked recording confirms Oakwood Grill's racist practices. Social media erupted. "Shut this place down immediately." "So they've been doing this for years?" "Fire everyone involved. This is beyond disgusting." The restaurant was officially in crisis mode. The next morning, headlines filled the news. "Oakwood Grill fires manager amid racism scandal." It was damage control. They thought sacrificing one person would make the problem disappear. But they never admitted guilt. Their official statement was carefully worded, full of corporate nonsense. "We take these allegations seriously and have parted ways with the employee in question. Oakwood Grill is committed to an inclusive dining experience for all." No apology, no accountability, just a cover-up. And Dante? He saw right through it. But just when it seemed like he was winning, everything changed. A fake article appeared. Who is Dante Carter? The truth behind the victim of Oakwood Grill. A shady website, one of those sketchy news blogs, ran a hit piece on him. They twisted his past, dug up old tweets from years ago, took them out of context, and painted him as a troublemaker. They called him a race baiter who was trying to get attention. And people believed it. The backlash started immediately. Dante's comment section was suddenly full of doubt. "Wait, is this guy really innocent? I heard he has a history of starting drama." Not saying the restaurant was right, but maybe he's exaggerating. It was happening again. The same people who had supported him were now questioning everything. Then his boss called. "Dante, we need to talk." His stomach dropped. The moment he walked into the office, he could feel it, the tension, the unease. "Dante, we've been getting calls about you," his boss said, choosing his words carefully. "Some of our clients have concerns about your involvement in this situation." His breath caught in his throat. What kind of concerns? His boss exhaled, looking uncomfortable. "They're worried about the company's reputation. They don't want controversy attached to us." Dante clenched his fists. "So, what are you saying?" A long pause. "If this situation doesn't die down soon, we might have to let you go." His blood ran cold. At home, Dante sat in silence. Everything was falling apart. The system was still winning. The restaurant was protecting itself. He was the one under attack. His job, his reputation, his entire life. People around him, even friends and family, were starting to doubt him. "Maybe you should just move on, Dante. It's not worth losing everything over this. You made your point. Why push it further?" Their voices echoed in his head, and for the first time since this started, he wasn't sure if he could fight anymore. Dante sat in the dark, his phone screen casting a faint glow on his face. He had two choices: give up and let the world move on, or fight back with everything he had. Then his phone buzzed. New email. Legal support for your case. He clicked on it, his heart pounding. "Mr. Carter, my name is Jordan Mitchell. I'm a civil rights attorney, and I believe you have a strong case against Oakwood Grill. I'd like to offer my services, free of charge. Let's talk." For the first time in days, Dante felt hope. The next morning, Dante met attorney Jordan Mitchell. A sharp, confident black woman in her 40s, she was a force of nature. "You've been targeted," she said bluntly, scanning the case files, "and they think they can silence you. We won't let that happen." Dante exhaled. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. It already has, Jordan said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were testimonies. People who had faced the same discrimination but never had proof, until now. They only got away with it because no one fought back, she said. But you shook the system. And now we're going to burn it down. Breaking. Lawsuit filed against Oakwood Grill for racial discrimination. News anchors covered it. #Justice for Dante trended worldwide. And then more victims came forward. Ex-employee speaks out. I was told to seat white customers first. Another black customer shares experience. They told me they were full, but let a white couple in after me. It was no longer just Dante's fight. It was a movement. The restaurant crumbles. The pressure was unbearable. Sponsors cut ties. Loyal customers stopped coming. Negative reviews flooded their pages. Shut this place down. Boycott Oakwood Grill. The owners tried everything to fix their image. Oakwood Grill releases. Apology. We are deeply sorry if anyone felt discriminated against, but it was too late. The public wasn't buying it. Inside the packed courtroom, Dante sat across from the restaurant's legal team. Their lawyer smirked. This is all just a misunderstanding. There's no real proof of discrimination. Jordan stood. Your Honor, we'd like to submit Exhibit A, leaked audio from an ex-employee confirming the restaurant's racist policies. Silence. Then the recording played. The jury listened. The judge listened. And the restaurant's lawyer? He had nothing left to say. Verdict, guilty. The ruling came swiftly. The court found Oakwood Grill guilty of racial discrimination. They were ordered to pay a massive settlement. And worse, the restaurant closed for good. As Dante walked out of the courthouse, a crowd cheered for him. Reporters swarmed. Mr. Carter, how do you feel about winning this case? He looked straight into the camera. This was never just about me. This was about justice. And today, justice won. Dante Carter stood outside the now shuttered Oakwood Grill. The once bustling restaurant was nothing more than an abandoned building, a symbol of its own downfall. Shown, yellow for lease signs were plastered across the windows. He had fought. He had won. But why didn't it feel like enough? The victory made headlines. Dante Carter had taken down a racist business and won. But deep inside, he knew. This wasn't just about one restaurant. Racism was still everywhere. He had seen it in the comments online. He had felt it in the way people still looked at him. And he had heard it in the voices of other victims who reached out, desperate for help. He couldn't stop now. And so, he built something bigger. Mission: to fight racial discrimination in businesses, workplaces, and communities. If they won't listen to one voice, we'll make sure they hear thousands. His inbox overflowed with messages. I was fired for no reason. Can you help? A restaurant refused to seat me and my wife. I saw your story. Thank you for giving people like us hope. Dante wasn't alone anymore. He had started something unstoppable. One evening, Dante walked past another upscale restaurant. The warm glow of chandeliers shined through the windows. Inside, a black family sat at a table. Their waiter stood over them, arms crossed, a fake smile on his face. Something was wrong. Dante watched as the family's expressions changed, from confusion to discomfort. The waiter pointed toward the door. They looked at each other, unsure. Then Dante took a step forward. But just as he moved, his phone buzzed. News alert. Another viral case of racial discrimination is happening now. Dante froze. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Final line. One battle won, 1,000 more to go. fade to black.